have a really good ability of picking the wrong window for the chat view. I mean, for real. You didn't want my attention till I started talking, and then you come and get in my lap? Like, I don't understand. What what do you want? I swear. I don't know what I'm gonna do with this situation. It's for real. So, okay. Welcome to Friday night. Welcome to the stream with me, Mama Lynn. Um, we basically show up around here to do one of many things. I will sit here and talk about just kind of random things, whether it be uh, current events or things going on in my life or whatever. Um, but ultimately, it's like advice hour. So anybody and everybody is allowed to come in here, ask questions, talk about issues that they're having in their personal life, um, especially with everybody kind of locked down for the pandemic. I think that it's good for us to communally connect, so that's kind of where the point is. Um, there's an email address that is in the description, and you can feel free to use that email address in order to send any questions, concerns, or stories, anything like that you want to discuss on stream, but maybe not in real time in the chat. Um, Otherwise, live chat is where it's at. There's also a link in the description to the Discord channel. It is something that we are really just getting started. Um, the channel is just getting started, and the Discord is even newer than the channel itself. I opened up my Discord channel that I kind of started randomly on a lark a long time ago. Um, just because it was requested of me. So yeah. So I figured why not? So every time that I'm on stream for the next 24 hours, there's a link available in the description for anybody who wants to be part of a more long-term communal discussion. So yeah, um, eventually I'll put together a video that kind of captures the entire story as to where everything's coming from and like where for real cats, like I'm talking like this is Tamber is my grandma cat. She acts like a kitten that never gets any attention. She gets attention all the time. She is the only animal in our house. um I fed her first can of premium level gravy soaked food today, and for some reason now that I'm actually talking, she she wants my attention. I was chasing her around, and uh, and she didn't want to play. She wanted to get into the bathroom where she's not really allowed to be, and now she's I guess, going to explore a little bit, which is better than her crawling absolutely all over me all the time and being incredibly distracting. So, anyway, it's been a couple of days since I sat down and talked to everybody. I feel like it has been forever since I last sat down, but I know it's only been a couple of days. Um, the last couple of days, I have not felt so well, and that always sucks. It super sucks when we're in the middle of a pandemic, and the pandemic that we're dealing with just so happens to have a symptom profile that mimics all sorts of different things that we can come across in our daily lives, whether it be a common cold or what we, call casually a stomach flu, even, in situations where we eat something that doesn't agree with us. And, um, I know that I've kind of talked about in passing some of the different medical conditions or situations that I live with on a daily basis, but one of the ones that I talk about pretty frequently and pretty freely, um, to the point of having, I had a vlog that I ran for about a year where I checked in every week just to kind of follow my progress for the first week after a specific surgery that I had. Um, I did have a gastric bypass done. So, for those people who are not familiar with what a gastric bypass is, it is a weight loss surgery. Um, the primary mechanism of that particular weight loss surgery focuses on malabsorption, meaning that you're intentionally causing your body to go into malnutrition in order to lose weight. Um, it is a difficult surgery to go through. It is also a difficult kind of life to live after the fact. Um, and it was not my first choice of, interventions, but um, like the primary reason for the fact that it was not my first choice is because I did have a friend during college who had made that choice and ultimately died from a complication that is not necessarily uncommon. Um, but I did discuss it before I had surgery with my surgeon to see exactly how uncommon it was and how likely it would be for me to have that same complication. So I kind of got the reassurance that I needed, but one of the downsides is that you kind of have a twofold um, after effect. Like, hopefully everything is going great and you don't have to really worry about it. You just have to eat small meals and you take your vitamins and you're good. I take my vitamins in patch form. Um, like just to kind of give an example, like this right here, this is 30 days worth of vitamins, like of this particular type of vitamin. Now, I have like 6 packets like this that I use on a regular basis, but ultimately, like I just wear patches. They work really well for me, so no big deal. I also can eat relatively normally, no big deal, until it's a big deal. And it becomes a big deal when, like, you eat something and if you happen to, like, if your body decided it didn't like it this time or whatever, you can get very sick. So that sick can come through in a number of ways. And so like I said, we're in the middle of a pandemic situation. So the pandemic also comes with the potential for feeling fatigue and headaches and stomach pain and unusual bleeding and like all of these things that they have listed as symptoms that you should be paying attention to. These are also symptoms that could be absolutely normal from the perspective of somebody who's had a gastric bypass. At the same time, depending on the severity of these things, they can also be a sign that there is a major complication of your gastric bypass. And that would mean time to go to the hospital. But they're also telling you to try to avoid going to the hospital, especially now when all the hospitals are reaching capacity. And it's almost a guarantee that if I show up at the hospital and say, I'm just really concerned about my gastric bypass, I'm not sure if like I'm just having a bad digestion day or if like major bowel obstruction kind of thing is going on, that I might get a triage workup and be sitting there um, hoping that, there's like a single bed available for me to get like a belly CT. And, like it's just, it is a nerve wracking time. It's a nerve wracking time for everybody. It's a nerve wracking time for a person who has normal health situations. So, like, when you have additional things that you have to think about, it's really just kind of over the top. But that kind of ties to like the discussion that I was having with the ether, with the void, with y'all the other day when it came to things um, in from the perspective of chronic illness, because oh, on a certain level, those of us that like deal with like chronic conditions, and at the end of the day, like receiving a gastric bypass and dealing with the normal after surgery lifestyle of a gastric bypass is kind of on par with a chronic illness. You um you just kind of get used to it. You just do what you got to do, and um you hope for the best. And uh yeah, but then you sit there and you're like watching everybody else um you're watching everybody else go through this process where they're kind of facing that kind of fear or these kinds of experiences for the first times in their life. And sorry, I was like distracting myself because I'm trying to take care of something, and it's not my and I have to do it on my phone and it's not letting me do it, and it's telling me I need to call my bank, and I don't want to do that right now cuz like that is dumb. So like wonder Anyway, what I was saying is that you're watching everybody go through those motions and face, chronic conditions, or the risk of chronic conditions for the first time in their lives. It can be a very overwhelming experience for a lot of people. And you want people to feel okay. But you also sometimes come into it with like this limited amount of patience because you're weird. So it wouldn't work on my phone, but it would work on the computer. Got Had me worried for a second because, like, I gotta pay the rent. We got really close to the wire. I need to take care of it, like, A to the SAP. And it was telling me, like, that it couldn't process. And I'm like, what do you mean that you can't process? I have to go and pay the rent. Like, oh, my life is a joke. Like, and that's the thing, is like that was where I was really going with talking about not feeling well. Um, I think it's important when you don't feel well, when you're feeling like, you know, you really need to take some minutes for yourself, that you do that, because um there was such a long time in my life where I didn't, and I suffered greatly for it. And I can't say that the things that I live with now, and kind of the fallout of all of that, isn't a result of that experience, or isn't a result of the choices that I made to not take care of myself in previous situations. So the other day when I woke up and I really didn't feel great at all, um I made the decision to, like this couch back here, I was on there for like almost a solid 24 hours straight. Like, I just kept falling asleep, and I let myself fall asleep over and over and over. And um, the cat kept me company. Speaking of, I'm gonna scare her. She's my kitty. You're alright. I only scared you a little bit. Can't tell if she's sleepy or if she just wants attention. Yeah? Yeah? But she takes care of me, I guess. She and her bony butt. Bony butt. Bony butt. Bony grandma butt. Bony grandma butt. Meow, meow. Meow, meow. Anyway.
No, you don't get to be up on there. Like, I just don't want her to step on the cord, and I'm trying to keep her off the desk. I know she gets up on the desk when I'm sleeping. She breaks the rules. Just calm down. Calm down. Sometimes I think we should just give her a bath and see what happens. Do you want a bath? Do you want a bath? Anyway, so I guess my point was mostly that I'm tired and I've been working through a few things. I've been trying to work on how awful I've really felt. Trying to make sure that I don't get completely overwhelmed by that kind of feeling. I think one of the things that's really difficult to deal with at times is just this sense of knowing that we're all going through something right now. We are all dealing with some level of like an emotional devastation, and there are plenty of people who have never been through something like this before. Like, they've never been through such an intensely serious challenge to their reality. I mean, there are days where I certainly think that I was fortunate to have experienced um, some of I had to kind of like face mortality at a certain point in a very acute way, and I had to answer some questions for myself in that moment where I had to say like whether or not the part of me that was so certain that I was just done. I didn't want to be alive anymore. Like, I genuinely used to believe that that was like a thing for me, and that I would be perfectly okay if I went into surgery and never woke up or whatever. And I think that's one of the most dangerous things about starting to turn your life around, is that when you're in a situation where your life feels like an utter disaster, it certainly does not feel so difficult to say, well, then it'll be over. And just to say, you know what? I'm okay if it wants to be over now. Because it sucks. Like, it sucks and I don't want it. I don't want this experience. So I'd be okay if it wanted to be done with right now. And I've certainly run into a lot of people who have no idea what that feels like. And I also know a number of people who know exactly what that feels like. So I guess if you know what that feels like, I am sorry that you have faced that same question. If you don't know what it feels like, I there's there's a part of me that would say you should count yourself lucky, but then there's also a part of me that would say um, that I'm also sorry for you because I feel like it does give a sense of like understanding that you wouldn't necessarily have in other situations or I don't know, like when you are forced to open your eyes and look at, making certain decisions that will ultimately be, you know, life defining, like those are difficult. And getting past them is super amazing. And it gets you places. It gets you into a better place in your brain, at least for a little while. The problem is that the effect wears off and life comes creeping back in, and you start becoming encumbered by the same minutia and bullshit that, was hitting the fan before. And so so then you're sitting here like having to constantly remind yourself you've survived worse. And then I have like this motto that I tend to, reiterate fairly frequently, and that's uh, to say that you survive everything until you die, and then it doesn't matter anyway, so you might as well live as if you will survive. Which makes a lot of sense, but the problem comes in when you get too literal with it and you start to truly recognize the fact that, like, this could be that time. And then it gets really not so fun. Because then you're dealing with, like, the devil's advocate that you have been carrying around in your brain for years, which, at one point when you were dealing with, like, the life threatening situation that you've survived, that devil's advocate was what saved your life. So you never like kicked it out of your brain entirely, because if you did, like, it's like kicking out the one thing that you knew for certain hadn't let you down. And where I'm struggling lately is this sense of like I got to figure out a way of kicking it out. If I don't, like, I don't know if I'm gonna, I don't know if I'll be able to make it through all of the questions. Anyway, I know that there's probably a fair number of people who have sat here and had these conversations with themselves, and we have to do what we've got to do in order to make it through tonight. But I feel like it's much like this puzzle. Like, how many times do I have to do this puzzle before I stop making the same mistakes over and over and over? Isn't that the point? That's the whole point of the loser party, is that there's not a whole lot of action going on except for watching me lose the same puzzle over and over and over. I've been having the most uh exciting conversation with myself about the existential crisis. Eventually it'll work out. The thing I was talking about was like how weird it is to um like I was not feeling very well the last couple of days, and it is always like it's a moment of questioning, and I think that what ends up happening right now is just because of the nature of everything that's going on. I think even the most mentally stable person immediately wonders, like, if they're catastrophically sick. And um I guess I was just kind of talking about uh how it's weird when you've been in a situation in your life where you have been catastrophically sick before. And so you've had all of those conversations with yourself before where you're like, what if it is now, and like like what kind of coping mechanisms and like mental gymnastics did you have to do in order to keep yourself from going down the rabbit hole of what if and everything. And you know, I guess I don't know if it's true of everybody, but at least for me, like I'm not able to tap the same coping mechanisms of like hopefulness and like survival that I see like other people going through, because I feel like I've kind of already expended that energy previously in my life. So now when I have moments where like I feel like I'm not well, I get way concerned. And I have reasons to be concerned because, you know, uh, I've had a gastric bypass and stuff, so it's kind of becomes scary, and it can get scary really quickly if something is going wrong with your your inner sides. But you know, right now it's not like there's people who are saying, "Oh yeah, there's plenty of room for you at the hospital to quell your fear or whatever." So like you just kind of have to roll with it, but I don't have a lot of that coping mechanism that a lot of people seem to be able to tap into right now. It's been super weird doing delivery work right now because it's like this weird mix of people who are just generally annoyed with having to deal with the negative impacts, like the negative impacts of COVID, and you're like, no, I understand that it's super annoying, but like I wouldn't be doing this job if I didn't know that there were tons of people who were not able to get their own groceries and were not able to go out into the stores and stuff. And I mean, like, that's why I started back up doing it back in March or whatever. I said, and now that, you know, I don't have a day job anymore, it's one of the few ways that I can even make, like, that's how I'm making any kind of living right now. So it's super difficult when you don't feel well, and like from like a medical perspective, and like if I were to call my doctor or whatever, they would tell me don't do anything, don't go out, like stay home, take your temperature every 2 hours, uh you know, drink lots of water, take a laxative. Like they would tell me to do all of these things, and I can't do that and still make enough money in order to pay the rent and stuff. So, like, I'm trying to do these things at the same time. And I'll tell you, I'm not a big fan of dealing with the direct general public all the time either. I used to do a lot more like in person customer service stuff, but as I've gotten older, I've found that my filter for, you know, whatever social, like, social limitations or whatever it is that makes it that, um, you know, I'm still exploring what exactly it is that makes me function the way that I do, or how I frame things or whatever. But Um, my filter is definitely becoming more and more broken, and so it's become increasingly more difficult for me to just go to the store and actually get the stuff that I've been like assigned to get through like doing grocery shopping, because I'll go to the store and I mean here, like, I don't know about where you're at, but here, like, I was trying to go to this person's house after doing their shopping, and it's 5:15 in the afternoon, and I know that most of the schools are closed here. Most people are, you know, doing the whole social distancing learning thing, but somehow I'm stuck in traffic for 15 minutes because there are so many people out doing fucking grocery shopping, not grocery shopping, Christmas shopping. And they fall into that category of people of like, oh, I just wanted to touch the spirit of the season, and it's just not the same, and we have our traditions in my family of going out, and I'm just like, you know that like the hospital is literally issuing public announcements saying don't come here unless you absolutely have to. Like, they have like our best research hospital here is one of the top in the country, and the last I heard they had 13 wards that were COVID wards, at least one of which was specifically a terminal COVID ward. And it pisses me off that there are people still running around thinking like that it's a joke, or that it's something to that they don't have to even think about when they're going around. And you know like, I understand that the Salvation Army is going to have their bell ringers, but I don't understand why they're accepting physical donations rather than, trying to do some kind of digital campaign. Like, I don't understand why they are literally standing out there and encouraging volunteers to interact with the public and to be doing all of this stuff. Like, I just don't get it. And at the same time, like, I'm I'm pissed because I like my state um several years ago changed how they do unemployment benefits, right? So now you have to certify at least 5 attempts to contact employment, have at least 2 applications that you've actually put in order to even file for your benefit. And generally speaking, I can understand it, but they're not doing any kind of like leniency for the situation that's going on now. So I'm like stuck. Yeah, the earlier today I saw somebody was like, they were ranting about the fact that Biden has not issued his request to issue, like, how, like, so Biden has said that when he takes office he will ask every American to wear masks for the first 100 days of his presidency at minimum. And somebody was saying, Why doesn't he ask us now? He's asking us to come together now. He's asking us to unify now. What stops him from asking us for the masks now? I guess he just doesn't know how to govern or whatever. And gratefully, I saw somebody respond with, why can't you just be an adult and wear a mask? Like, why are you not, like, why are you waiting for someone to tell you what to do when it is so not that hard to understand? And I think people like myself, I can understand that, at one point Biden was saying he was going to issue a mandate for the masks. And then people started bitching about it. And so now he's going to ask every American to wear a mask. Well, it doesn't mean he's not necessarily going to put in a mandate, but he's softened the language that he's using around it because people were being stupid about it. Now, for me, like your question, I'm in Nebraska. I live in the 2nd District of Nebraska, which I've been highlighting simply because there's a big difference between living in the majority of Nebraska versus living in the 2nd District of Nebraska. So, 2nd District of Nebraska is the yeah, so we're the chunk of the state that if anybody breaks liberal, it's this city. This city tried to instate a mask mandate, and our state governor sued our city's health commissioner for saying that we were going to have a citywide mask mandate. So, like, our governor has made national news about his opinions on whether or not he should issue a mandate. And like I can't even believe that I would say this, but like I don't like Ben Sass. I've never voted for that man. I hate his commercials. I hate it when they accidentally get me on his voter rolls and they call me with their automated systems to get me to try and vote for him. Like, I hate it. But the fact that even he would break away and say shit, like, I was like, did people just not understand how serious it has to be for somebody like Ben Sass to say something anti the Republican president? Like, it's insane to me. But instead, we're stuck with this dollar store Lex Luthor in charge of our state who won't help us out, who would not extend any additional UI benefits. He would not reduce or remove the unemployment, uh, the job search criteria. Like, he didn't eliminate or help any of these situations. So I'm sitting here like, right. So, like, there's some theories in like that you hear people starting to talk about where it's like kind of like um this sense of oversaturation. And I remember, like, it was several weeks ago. I had to go and get a COVID test done because I remember waking up, it was like some Friday. I was still at my day job, but I woke up and I felt awful. Like, I mean, I felt like way more awful than I had in a long, long time. And, it just kind of met a lot of the criteria. And I had been doing the delivery work on the weekends. And I was just like, I gotta be safe. And so I went and got a test. And, thankfully, uh, it was a negative test, but I remember thinking when I was like waiting for the results and feeling just awful that I didn't want I didn't want to now be sick. Like I understand that in theory the majority of the country is going to end up getting sick. Um, I mean, at the point that we're at right now, the majority of people are going to deal with sickness. We're either going to deal with sickness because, as they've been discussing things like the vaccine is it literally makes people ill. I don't take the flu vaccine because the flu vaccine literally makes me ill. I've had lots of people tell me that that's just not possible with the flu vaccine, but the funny thing about this recent conversation that has just been so interesting to me is the number of comments that I've found in like the public discourse of people discussing the fact that the flu vaccine also makes people feel ill sometimes. I'm like, "Oh, okay, so I'm not completely crazy." But I mean, it makes me very sick, like for 2 weeks, kind of sick. So like in general, I don't get it. But I had been thinking about getting it this year to try and fend it off or whatever. But as they've been talking about the COVID vaccine and saying, even if it's successful, even if it's administered correctly, it is not a pleasant experience to get an active flu or an active COVID vaccine. I was like, so you're either going to be sick from the vaccine or you're going to be sick from the actual illness and also from the vaccine. So everybody's going to experience something. I personally am trying to keep myself in the latter half just because the longer we have when it comes to experience, the the better chances that I will benefit from, just the general, experience and learning that happens throughout the course of everybody that does suffer earlier on, which I know is super, super selfish, but I'm like, that's the truth. So, um, but when I was waiting for those results, I remember thinking like I don't want to be one of the million. Like cuz it was early enough in all of this conversation that we were still talking about, fairly early infection numbers. We were still talking about less than 200,000 deaths. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't want to be part of this humongous number because that number just erases the face. I think that's the biggest difference between 9/11 and this is that we are seeing the night, like, we are now seeing deaths on the level of 9/11 every day. But when we look at 9/11, it was a single day, and that single day window, and then like the after effect of the people who were survived the day but died of secondary complications and whatnot. It gives us a framework and like a focal point, and that focal point is very, very concentrated, not only on a foreign enemy but also on a very stark visual, on something that we could physically fight with like force and vigilance and a fist. And that was actually something that, like, when this whole pandemic thing first started kicking off, and everybody was like, I don't understand why my parents don't take this more seriously and stuff. I said I have a very strong theory on that, and the theory comes down to the fact that, like, people my age, like, our parents are in their 60s and 70s, and when they were growing up, they were doing bomb scare drills in in their schools. Like, they were being trained to, you know, like, the threats that they were facing and being, that were being discussed around the dinner table at that time were very visible and very real, and they were people, and they were things that you could fight, and they were things that you, like, got drafted to go and grab a gun and go shoot people. But COVID is just like this invisible entity that might fly up your face at some point, and you have no way of seeing where it is or when it's coming, or anything. And so in some ways, to be afraid of something that invisible and that intangible seems ludicrous after you have the experience and the comparison against, all of this stuff that our grandparents and our parents have survived. Well, and I think, like, I do think that on a certain level there were people who were making plans in regards to a pandemic. I think what the assumption was, though, is that the US's role in a pandemic was always going to be the role of hero. We were always going to be the place that researched and brought the cure. We were not going to be the focal point. Like, I think even when we were seeing stuff happening in Italy, I had lots and lots of conversations with people about how, well, Italy was a different country, they're a different kind of medical system, they're a different kind of people. And I'm like, Italy is a first world developed westernized country with universal health care. And now, yes, they have an older population, but one of the reasons they have an older population is because their health care is better. And they're all dying. I'm like, in the developed world, there are people being left to die in hallways and in the streets. And people here were saying, oh, they live such a different life than us, but they really don't. And it just, oh my, I don't know if you can hear him. I apologize if you can hear him. It's very distracting for me. So, anyway, the whole thing has just been, it's been hard for me to understand how to navigate. I guess that's good. There's just certain video games that just, I really wish I had the ability of banning. Anyway, how you been? Well, yeah, like, in my house. I get tired of hearing anger. Oh, the tired. If you're tired, why what are you doing here? I gotcha. Too many mental gymnastics with your pseudo girlfriend. Yeah, we were talking about it the other day. I don't know. Sometimes I think I get people mixed up. It's like law school. Maybe law school's your pseudo girlfriend. It's weird because, like, it's almost like my brain catches up like after the fact. Like I say something stupid and then I'm like, "Oh wait. Oh." Like I swear, I promise, I remember who you are. Like I just maybe I'm just too tired for this. I don't know. I'm like I don't know how to explain like how distracted my brain has been recently. The law school thing though, like I don't envy you at all. I'm trying to decide if I think it would be more difficult to go to law school through like a virtual classroom kind of situation versus having to go to actual lecture. Do you think you hate it because the people who are teaching you are unprepared to be teaching in that format, or because you personally struggle with the format? That was a stupid move of mine. I gotcha. I always, I think in a lot of ways, I thought that it was nice to have kind of a digital format, in the sense, like if it was like self-paced learning. And the reason why I could appreciate that is because I would get so aggressively bored waiting. And at least with self-paced learning, like, you can figure out what day of the week is best or what time of day is best and kind of do what you had to do. But I could definitely see how, if your home life is not particularly conducive to like supporting what you're trying to accomplish, like that would be very difficult. And the only, I guess the only real frame of reference that I have for that is when my job that I had uh, made the decision that everybody was going to move to, you know, working from home for a while. It was it was difficult because when you are actually leaving the house, then like the other people that you're living with, whether it be roommates, partners, or whatever, or the animals, what have you, um, they see you leaving. They in theory recognize that you're gone. But when you're in the house, even if you have like a separate space and you have, and you've discussed it and you planned it out and the whole nine, like, um, there's always like that crossover that happens. And that was always super frustrating for me because you want to be like, I swear I am trying to accomplish something right now and it's not getting done because you keep asking me about laundry or whatever. And like, I don't know if this is relevant at all to what you're dealing with, But, it's one of those things where you're like, I just need this time in order to focus on what I'm trying to work on or whatever. Um, is this really a question that needs to be asked right this moment? Be more than once. Do I have clean underwear somewhere? I'm like, you're like, would you be calling me if I wasn't at the house? Would you, like, in your circumstances, like if you were on campus, if you were attending class, would they be texting you these questions? Would they be calling you with these questions? If the answer is no, then why is it suddenly acceptable to be asking these questions or, infiltrating your study time with these concerns or these distractions? Like, it's not acceptable. And those boundaries need to exist. And I think one of the things that is additionally difficult is like if you're the kind of person who's prone to distraction or procrastination, which is also me, um, I can usually stay on task if I'm just allowed to stay on task. Like I can button down and I can do what I gotta do. But if a person introduces a reason for me to not do what I need to do right now, I'm likely to take it, and then you don't get anything done. And it's super hard right now because I think that one of the ways that people would suggest you help minimize that kind of like distraction or whatever, especially when you were kind of cramming, as we were talking about before, or, trying to address a more um, urgent need or situation, they would say, you know, take your laptop and your study materials and like go somewhere, go to the library, go to a coffee shop that you like but isn't going to be full of people that you know or whatever, and use that as like school, right? But like the thing is that even if you could conceptually like decide on a place that was like that right now, like you can't go there. So you're still stuck. Like even if you wanted to just go sit on campus, like you couldn't go sit on campus. So I'm not envious of the situation. I think maybe the only thing that would make me feel at all envious about it is like the idea that you have found a focus for yourself. something to work on for a little while. Yeah, I was thinking like it's probably as good a time as any. I just like even though you and I talked just the other night, like there was like a part of me that felt like I had not been on for a long time. So I wanted to at least stop by. So I appreciate you stopping by as well. I hope you can get some good rest and get some decent studying in tomorrow. I'll make you a deal. You get some good studying in tomorrow, and I will, like, make a concerted effort to actually meet my um meet my criteria in order to be able to file for actual unemployment benefits because those job search requirements are really hard to meet when you're spending 16 hours a day in your car trying to get grocery delivery going. So, it'll be all right. Anyway, I do think I will probably jump out for the evening. I have a calzone that we made, but I never ate, and I'm ready to do that. So, check out the Discord. Come hang out. Come chat. For real. For real serious, guys. Anyway, until next time, be kind to yourselves, be real, be good, all this stuff. For real serious. Anyway, peace.